All right, and we should be going. All right, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're doing a bit of a different episode where I brought in my friend Stan from back home. Stan's getting ready for his first powerlifting competition. I'm hoping to have some more of these kind of just conversational type episodes for you all to, just cue you in on conversations from, you know, just regular guys like us who are getting ready for these meets and training to get better. So, without further ado, Stan, if you want to introduce yourself and just give everyone some background.
Sure. For first and foremost, thank you for having me on here. My name is Stanley Brown. Feel free to follow me at I'm Stanley Brown just on Instagram. Just throwing that out there. To introduce myself, I would say that I am, an older powerlifter student, closer to my 30s, who kind of got into the sport and was interested as time progressed, seeing people like Tristan, Cody, and other people from our local high school back in the day, kind of excelling in the sport, inspired me to get into it. And, we're here now, just kind of chasing dreams almost.
Awesome. Yeah, and I kind of going off of that, your inspiration and uh, our area, which I'm sure we'll talk about more, but um, what made you choose powerlifting or what got you started in the gym, first of all?
You know, I would say, not to throw anything on it, I would say that for me personally, what got me started in lifting in any sport was, I was a heavier set kid. I loved playing football. I did that in fourth grade, but lifting weights was never my taste until I started to get into a teenager, and I had an uncle show me the barbell. Right, he was like, "Here, get under this." He was doing you know bench press in his gym, and I was like, "Man, this guy's strong. He gets all the girls. Like he always knows what to say." So he got me under the bar, and I lifted it a few times and was like, "This is cool," but my family didn't necessarily have the means at the time to keep a consistent gym membership or things like that. So I came from a very humble background where playing a sport was a luxury, and it was something that wasn't always guaranteed, but when it was something that meant the world to me. So as I progressed into my teenage years, I ended up moving up to Oakland, Maryland, and getting the opportunity to play football for, Southern represent, right? Um, that's where I met Tristan, who, if I recall, was in 10th grade playing with us 11th graders, same when he was an 11th grader, like just doing absolutely amazing on the line. And that was a humbling moment where I met a lot of where I met a lot
I'm
of
I'm
different
gonna
people.
say, I that 10th grade year, I was just trying to tread some water.
I remember you had the forearm guard, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, yo, this thing is a month. I remember one time going against you and you like hit me. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
but uh, but let's not. I don't want to reminisce too much about football because whenever I think about it, I remember losing to Fort Hill, 60 points. So that's
Yeah, I remember that.
I was tough. But despite that, there was a lot of lessons that I learned, a lot of great people that I met during that time, and I'm extremely grateful to that area and that time in my life. But that kind of that came back around into my later teenage years, into my early 20s. I had moved to Texas and didn't really have an outlet for dealing with stressful times. Honestly, video games was cool, but that wasn't conductive all the time to the way I needed to take care of my body. So once I decided that I wanted to get healthy and I wanted to take care of my body and I wanted to be strong, I decided to go ahead and get into just lifting. So as we talked before this, I started looking at things like Arnold Schwarzenegger's program, and I think we talked a little bit about T Nation, and trying to get advice from anywhere I could to understand how to lift. But it was a little bit different in 2015 ish, where I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm going to Google these workouts would do them my best, but all I could think to myself was if I have a good squat, excuse me, if I have a good bench, a decent deadlift, and if I can overhead press, nothing else matters. I'm living by the bar, you know. So so that was my my introduction into kind of powerlifting, and it progressed a little bit more as you know I started to lift weights and be like, all right, well, I hit 315, you know, now I'm a boss, you know, I can walk around with a little, you know, chip on my shoulder or something. And,
Yeah.
you know, that's when I started seeing people like yourself and other friends who were powerlifting in these different areas, but at much heavier weights, right? So that's where in my head I was like, you know what? It's time that I start to dedicate my time to lifting in a better way. So for me personally, and I'm sure you can relate, it was all about building the form, building, you know, that base, but at a smaller level when I was, you know, 21, 20 years old, where I was like, all right, I'm going to go to the gym and just try and lift in an hour, hour and a half, build that routine, build the form, and see where it takes me. So I remember I did a local meet at my community college at Lone Star, and it wasn't no judges. There was nothing, nobody there. It was just you know a bunch of guys listening to music at our gym and trying to dig deeper is the way I like to put it. So
Yeah.
I remember that was the first time that I hit a 405 squat. I failed it twice. They like you know they did the back then. I didn't know what it was. I was like, why is someone standing behind me? But back then, you know, they guided me up, which now I know is so
Oh, I see
crucial
what you
to
mean. They were like up under you. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like if you fail, they guide you back up. So I failed 405 twice, and then I was able to go up to like 425, 450 once I got that confidence to have that weight on my back. Um, I remember that was the first time I deadlifted. I think it was like 460, somewhere in that range. My bench, like it was at 250. So at that time, I had created a great routine, but I wasn't sure where it was going to lead to. I just, you know, there was a meet, it was local. I didn't have to do much,
Yeah.
not good people, and play my own music, and you know, simple as that. So that's kind of my background as things have progressed over the past few years. I was just like, I really, you know, I would go in there and put in those hours, but I really was like, how can I show people that this means something to me? So that's where we're at
Yeah.
now. You know, starting my first meet, making the different videos and edits on YouTube. For me, it was really about showing people my creative pursuit within this career, or within this community. I say career, but within this community and more or less sport.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a good motivation to have. It sounds like you were very like process oriented. You know, you've never it doesn't sound like you're lifting weights to like go out and be stronger than X person or like to go out and win your first competition. Like it doesn't sound like you were thinking that way. Am I correct in thinking that?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like when I did the local meet, it wasn't about winning. I mean, I thought to myself like, oh yeah, you know, this person's lifting this or this is this. I'm gonna try to, you know, go to the next level, Super Saiyan type stuff, right? And then I was like, someone came in and just lifted like way more than I could. So I was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna take notes from that person. I'm gonna learn how they do it. I'm gonna, you know, respect their game. So it wasn't anything about winning or being competitive. It was more about like connecting with different people.
Yeah. And I I've been thinking about this a lot actually because it's like I've in my time lifting and training through college, I've gone through guess you could call them training partners or people I've trained with over the years and been around in the gym. And there's like a common denominator for the ones who stick around. And it kind of connects perfectly with this getting ready for your first powerlifting meet thing. every time I talk to someone who is just bent on winning and like beating the next guy, they never last because, you could have the day of your life. Let's say at your first competition, that local one, you said you squatted 405 first time, which that's a huge deal. That's 4 plates. And you were probably ecstatic about that, I would imagine.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but if you went in with the goal, yeah, like if you went in with the goal of like, I have to win or it's a failure, you could have hit that 405, that huge milestone, and then someone just happens to come in who's like an outlier of strength and beats you, then your day feels like a failure. And then that's why people kind of quit. So I really like the mentality you seem to have where it's like, just do the process and then you're going to get darn strong if you just keep on that trajectory.
Hmm. Yeah. I won't lie. The first time that I tried 250 on that bench that day, that's when I realized I wasn't as strong as as I wanted to be, but also as I thought I was. And a running theme within me is anime and Dragon Ball. So I think that Dragon Ball as a kid taught me that no matter where you are in life, no matter what you do, there's always going to be someone that's better than you or some way is more prepared. So all you can do is do your absolute best and rest in the fact that you did your best. And at that point, you can't get down on yourself. And I think that kind of reversing it though. I mean, at that age, I was 20. That was 2019 for me when I did that local meet. You were already in the aspect of like, what were you in nationals? I think at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. So my first nationals was actually in 2015. I jumped head first. Um, yeah. And then 2019, that would have been my last nationals as a junior that year. Yep.
So for you then, it interests me so much because, I mean, you're very humble, right? Like even as we talk to this day. So, I mean, as a teenager, right? Like we got the testosterone flowing for you. Like, were you competitive in that way? Was it going in there and being like, I gotta win this, or was it just like I'm gonna do my best? Like, how did it work for you?
Yeah. So I have always wanted to win. And it stems from our football days. I think we were fed the world's greatest motivator because we had years of, let's just face it, like we were kind of mediocre football team. We weren't like the worst football team. Uh, we weren't the best football team either, and we took L's going back to
Yep.
Fort Hill, losing by 60 points. Um, and like, so once I got to powerlifting, it was the first sport that I had like gotten a chance to compete, and I tasted what it was like to actually possibly be good at something. And I was like, oh, wait a second. I can control this because, like, with a football team, you're obviously only 1/11th of the people on the field at a time. But I I also was fortunate that I was at least smart enough to recognize that I was brand new to a sport, and I just wanted to become better than myself each time I did it. And I
Hmm.
knew that if I did that long enough, then I would be competitive with people because like powerlifting's not directly about like in football you can intimidate someone and like you know
True.
act crazy, scream, whatever, and if they're intimidated, like you're going to have an edge. In powerlifting, you cannot directly influence your opponent, right? Or at least it's very rare that there's an influence. So my mindset was always, if I lift as much weight as I can and make all of my lifts, then someday I'll be strong enough to place.
Mm.
And that brought me to like my first meet. I went 9 for 9. I didn't even place. I got 5th place at a local meet, but I had a blast because like I went 9 for 9. I was nervous. I had a good time. Everyone was supportive. So I didn't care. I didn't get a medal. And then I went to the next competition, went 9 for 9, lifted more weight. Um, it was I think I was the only one in the teenage division that for that one, so I got like a default gold medal. But really, I didn't care about that. And then I signed up for collegiate nationals that following year. This was 2015, so about a year into competing. And the this is where like it really got ingrained to me to just run your own race, because I came into that meet nominated 8th based on like
Mm.
our nominated totals. So once again, my thought process was run my own race, have a perfect day, and like have a good time, and placing will fall where it does. Like at 8th place, I don't really have a shot at the podium. Well, on the day, uh, I think it was two of like the top ranked guys. One bombed out on squat and one bombed out on bench. So like
Wow.
they didn't make the one guy didn't make a squat, and then the other didn't make a bench, so they got disqualified. And I went 8 for 9 that day. Essentially, I was lifting equipped because at the time collegiates was only equipped, meaning I was
Mm.
in a squat suit and knee wraps. Um, and I just missed my second bench. So basically, I made my first bench, missed the second bench, did something I would never recommend, which was I went up to my third bench plan without hitting my second. Um, and that was because I ended up tearing my bench shirt. That's why I missed the second one and
Wow.
made the third bench. So I went 8 for 9 because I missed that second bench on a technicality. Um, and because I had the perfect day for me, I got third place, bronze medal
Mm.
at a national championship. And like, I didn't even know I placed third until they were calling the medals, because like I hadn't even looked at the score table the entire time. And that just taught me. It was like, hey, I was able to place well because I handled my job. Those other lifters who bombed out, they didn't handle their job. Maybe they were worried about the other guys they were competing against, and they stretched beyond their capabilities. And it just, that meet was like, set a foundation for me moving forward of, hey, just do my job, do what I can do. And then the only time that you really need to worry about your competition at a high level is like a third deadlift at nationals, because you can change deadlifts to like pull for wins and things like that. But that didn't come
Mm.
for me until way later, um, you know, several years down the line.
Man, I mean, it sounds like, see, that's what interests me so much about the sport, is that it's not only, it's very reliant upon your mental and physical strength, but there's a little bit of strategy in there, right? Like there's like
Yeah.
a little bit of like spice it up. So it's thank you for sharing that. I think
Like
that
chess.
exactly. And I for all my anime homies out there, I think that we can say for Goku, anytime bro's shirt rips, that's the ultimate strength. They're putting it out all on the line there. So it's really cool to hear how you progressed at a young age through those meets. And I think I can relate to about the winning aspect. Obviously, I think at some point, shape, or form from our football time frame, we lost so much at different
Yeah.
times that we had that like we want to win, like we wanted to win, and I think that translates to an adult as, you know, you're going to win, you're going to lose, but at the end of the day, it's about what happens in between that. And I think that's such an awesome life like lesson. And more importantly, like I'm grateful that a person like you was in the position to win because at a young age, like if I was doing that at night, like 15, bro, 16, and that would have went straight to my head, you know. So it's so cool. It's so cool to see like how it's shaped you into an adult, and you know, it's my, I guess that you know, I kind of that kind of mindset. How can I say that kind of mindset almost puts you in a way already mature, but also understanding that winner's mindset, that black, you know, that mama mentality, right? Like it's cool.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You know, it's there is a balance, you know, and I think I've talked about this with you before, but it's like there's hyper aggressive lifters and then there's hyper conservative lifters. And if I were to like describe them in a word, basically the hyper aggressive lifter wants to max out every single day and like go all out. And the hyper conservative lifter is like doesn't want to do the work. You know, they want to show up and get the gains. And it seems like the most successful power lifters, for whatever reason, are somewhere in between. Like they're aggressive enough to want to push it, but they're um, you know, reserved enough to know where the limit is to be like, okay, I'm not going to beat this guy. You know, maybe he's just more talented than me, has more years of lifting. I can accept that. Like you have to pick and choose your battles of when like you're going to be like, I'm going to win this meet.
So true, man. It's really for younger children too. You know, it's a um, really good mindset and life lesson to learn. You know, I think as especially in our early 20s, if you don't go out there and fail and try your hardest and still fail, like you know,
Yeah.
it's tough. Like I think that those lessons are mandatory in building an overall good character. You know, if we go around winning everything that we do, and that one time we lose, what's that going to do to us? And vice versa. You know, if we go around losing everything and then we win that one time, how are we going to react in that? So it's all about building a overall, you know, great mentality, I think, and it's cool to see how in different ways I think both of us have had our own like version of that. It's cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and I think it's going to set you up for this meet. That you're going to have a great time, and if I were to put money on it, you'll probably get bit with the bug. Whereas, like, when's the next one? You know?
Yeah. I'm definitely not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous. I went and checked out the facility, the 495 Strength and Performance Gym. Shout out to I think his name was Jonathan or Coach JJ for others. Great guy. It was my first time, you know, using like legit verified illegal equipment. Granted, at Gold's here that I live in, you know, Crofton, Maryland, we have great equipment and it's really cool. And when I went to check out Iron Forge, great equipment, great vibe, bro. It's like underground,
Hmm.
like it's the same way at this 495. I was like, yeah, this is where I need to be. You know, like those environments which you just posted about not too long ago on your YouTube
Yeah.
hashtag ad. Um, I think that they really bring out something in a work ethic and overall energy that we all can use. So coming back to the 495 and this meet, it's like I think that you know I've spent the past few years almost you know training and I want to say silence, not very many people you know like paying attention to it and
Hmm.
um, I didn't record it much. You know, I just went there as a side hobby, so that way I could not lose my brain at work. And um, now that I'm getting the opportunity to actually compete, it's life. It's it's I want to say life altering because like it's something I've dreamt about. for years. Being in a position and around the right people to do that, because for so long I was in my apartment gym throwing around 275 and was like, when am I going to get the chance to do this at a higher level? So to say that I'm a little nervous um, would definitely be an understatement. I'm confident in my ability to perform. I'm confident in
Hmm.
my mindset, and under your guidance, I know that we're building something, and we're going to be able to, you know, meet people, make waves, and I think for me, no matter what happens at the meet, hoping for the best. No matter what happens, my biggest thing is having the opportunity to meet people and have you down here connect with different people, and vice versa. I think the number one thing I'm looking forward to after this, which I'm probably thinking too far ahead, but I'm looking forward to training in awesome places, man. Like
Yeah.
can you speak a little bit on like the places you've got to train, whether that's internationally or locally or throughout different states? Like, what's it been like for you throughout the years?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and you had brought it up as far as like training goes for me, I always there's not many times that I've had like an actual group of people to train with, if that makes sense, or at least a consistent group. I will say it's a pain in the neck to train with me if you're going to like, squat with me or bench or whatever, because I take forever. It's just like my training sessions are like 3 hours, and I don't blame people for not wanting to stick through that. So because of that, early on in my career, I felt like I was like, it doesn't matter where I train. Like I could train in this little box and still get the work done because I'm not extrinsically motivated by anything around me. Like I I've seen people in college, for example, who would like cater their lifting schedule to like, volleyball team's gonna be in the gym at this time, so I've got to be squatting heavy. Like that never that never motivated me, which is probably a good thing. But because I've gotten the chance to train in these other gyms now, like Iron Force, I mentioned Nittany Barbell, which I used to train at in State College, Pennsylvania as well. I really like to make my way up there again just to visit, because they have great people, and it's like these gyms are the first time that I've seen that mindset of like everyone's working to something, whether it be powerlifting or bodybuilding or just like getting better. There's an intensity to it, and it's not that I need approval from these people, right? I've always said if I could squat 135 every single day in the gym and then hit a PR spot on the platform, I'd do it. Like I don't care what numbers I hit in the gym or what it looks like I'm hitting in the gym. But there's like a feeling when you're like 5 sets deep, you're like, man, I'm feeling like garbage. And you look over and there's someone else training for something hard, they're struggling too. And you're like, hey, they're not stopping.
Mm.
Like I've got to pick it up. Now, the last thing, so that's kind of gyms. I have gotten the chance to travel with powerlifting and like compete in different places. And honestly, along with the people I've met, no doubt, but the travel's my favorite part of like, it's been a gift of what I've been able to do, competing in a place like Belarus, which you can only get into Belarus if you have a sports visa. Like you can't buy a plane
Wow.
ticket and just fly there. Um, and to get to go there and compete for the World Championships in 2017, like the place is all old Soviet Union infrastructure, is this whole culture. I'll admit,
What?
you could tell it was a corrupt place. Like, there are stories that come from that trip that make me nervous to even tell sometimes. But um, I'll never forget that trip, like lifting there and going through that process, and to go to Sweden and Denmark and Canada. And like this summer, I'm going to the Cayman Islands, which is going to be a blast. I mean, that's like a vacation, but I get to go do what I like to do the most there as well, which is lift weights. So it's definitely, if anyone gets the chance to travel for lifting, I say take it, and that's a huge plus.
So cool, man. Thank you for sharing that. I think that in regards to traveling, I'm sure throughout this time, your girl can't complain either, right? Like that being able to join that and like experience that. I'm sure like those things all definitely help with like experiencing new different things. And one of the things I learned from moving to Texas at 19, which was wild, not gonna lie. I did that with I don't think I had any money in my pocket, but I was able to
That's
move
crazy.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it worked out to an extent till COVID, which is another story. But um I think that there's a verse by Tyler the Creator where he talks about how moving at such a young age, being able to do different things at such a young age changed him as a person for the better. And I think, that experience you got to see at, Belarus, like one, I didn't know that you had to like be on a sports visa to be there. That's so cool. And two, I also didn't know that like traveling in a place like that is secluded to where they still have their own history behind it. I mean, that's fascinating. And I think things like that I never knew was possible until probably about a month and a half ago. I'm not gonna lie. Like I saw Russ Swole and Weeze go to Japan and live
Mhm.
there. And that's for the first time I was like, wait, they do this other places? And then I've been watching your film and I was like, wait, he was here? Like huh? Like, why is this not on TV? Why is this not on like ESPN stuff like that? Like, I think like those opportunities are so valuable and so awesome, and I mean, it really boils down to the gym etiquette, right, and the gym vibes. I
Mhm.
too at 23 when I first started community college, I was working out with some of the homies, but I'm squat, bench, deadlifting, doing cardio, and me being, full testosterone and a little ambitious. I was like, man, they're just goofing around, right? They're not putting in the work. I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna do my workout. I'm putting in the work. They're just goofing around. My mindset, and I look at videos I made 2 years ago where I was like, if you're on your phone, not sweating at the gym, you're not working. And to an extent, I think it came from a good heart, right? Trying to
Mhm.
motivate the people that are on my social media to go out there and do that work. But in that same way, also telling myself that, like, this is how you stay committed to that act. But as time has progressed, I still have that mindset to a way, that intrinsic motivation. However, it's not changed. Like I no longer am judgmental of the people that are not working as hard as me. And I put that in quotations because it's all just a thing that I was telling myself, the Goggins mindset, right? Once I learned that, you know what, we're all in here trying to get better. And just because they're doing a different workout doesn't mean that they're not progressing in some way, shape, or form. I'm just happy they're here. And what that has done now has evolved my mindset around the gym. Like you could be 1,000 pounds. You could be 20 pounds. If you're in there for any amount of time, I know for a fact, in some way, shape, or form, you as a person, not just you, but the viewer, whatever, we are trying
Mhm.
to grow. And that is so cool. And to kind of cap that off is I didn't used to think I didn't used to think the environment meant anything. I grew up I was adopted and I'm very grateful for the way that my family raised me. But I grew up, telling myself it's not where you are, it's who you are. And that still applies to an extent, but it also has evolved to, you know what? It's who you are and it's who you're around. Because
Mm.
just as you said, you look over, that guy is working just as hard, if not harder, or whatever, right? Whatever perceived effort there is, that's going to motivate you and that's going to focus you up. And it's not even about competition. It's more like this person is doing that. I need to get better. I need to do whatever I need to do. So environment has definitely played a huge role in my development into my early, mid, and now late 20s. I'm seeing that here at Crofton. I've met amazing people. I'm so grateful for my family that has allowed me to be here while I attend UMBC. And, they indirectly, I don't think they've noticed it. Well, they probably have because I posted all over social media, but indirectly, they have helped me influence this mindset of teamwork. And obviously I played sports, so it's always been there to an extent. But when it comes to being at the gym, I've met a few different people where I'm like, this person taught me how to squat better. You taught me how to program better and work on my foundation of the squat and deadlift and bench. This person taught me this, or this person this, or being around this person taught me how to be more social. Like being a part of this
Yeah.
group has given me some type of benefit to my mental and physical health. So in every way, shape, or form, I'm starting to kind of learn how to be more along the lines of a social person. And I mean, it has me in the mindset of being like, I don't want to ever leave, right? Like I can still train in the dungeon and I can do what I need to do to get it done. But in that same mindset, I also know that when I'm around good people and good environments and good equipment and all that, it definitely influences my effort and my mentality. It's cool to see.
Yeah. And when you go to this meet, and hearing you say that, just like, I know what's coming. Like, you're going to go to this meet, and powerlifting meets, especially at the local level, it's that being surrounded by people who all have the same goal cranked up to 11. Like, everybody's cheering for each other during their lifts. I've never seen anyone legitimately like uh what's the word for it? Like, to have animosity to someone else because they're competing against them at a local level. Like, you're not going to see that. It's going to be like this big camaraderie of everyone wanting everyone else to do well, and I think you're going to thrive in that environment. So I'm excited to see what you think and like what you have to say after this is said and done.
That's so cool. I remember I asked Cody over the summer. I was like, Cody Shreve, of course, and I was like, hey
Hmm.
man, and I think I told you I kind of worked a little bit indirectly with your stepdad. I remember I asked Cody. I was like, hey,
Yeah.
what's Tristan like? Like during his competition, like how is he? And he's like, Tristan is one of the nicest and most humble, like approachable guys I've ever met. But when he gets to competition, he's a different beast. And that got me fired up to when like I was reading or watching your tapes on YouTube and like seeing some of the energy you brought to that, man. I was like, this is amazing. Like, I think that at a smaller level, like some of these powerlifting meets can be a little quiet, you always got people
Hmm.
yelling but the way you got, the crowd amped, you're stomping back and forth between the deadlift. I was like, bro, this guy looks like he's about to like tear through the floor. Like it's so cool.
I'm
But
a
then
psychopath.
and
I'll be honest.
likewise, but in that same way, and I think that's the duality of being a man, right? Like you have to be able to channel that inner dog, right? But then also be kind and approachable and all of that. I think that all goes into being an overall good person.
Yeah, you're spot on with that. And that I would be remiss if I said that there weren't powerlifters who struggle to separate those two things, you know? You run across them occasionally who they're just kind of they have a chip on their shoulder on the platform and they also have it whenever you talk to them. But that's also the minority of
Mm.
the powerlifting community as a whole. I think and this is an important point. I think sometimes that vocal minority gets highlighted on social media too, which like you can sometimes it gives the powerlifting community a little bit of not a bad rap, but it hurts the reputation. You know, you have the
Mm.
people who are like, sumo is cheating, or you shouldn't arch this much on the bench press, or whatever, raw versus equipped lifting. And if you go to a meet, chances are, like, if there's 100 people at a local meet, no one's going to bring up the fact that someone's sumo deadlifting versus conventional deadlifting. Like, you're not going to see it. But if you were to guess from social media, sometimes you'd be like, oh, everybody has an opinion on this, but literally no one cares.
Yeah, and I won't lie to you, bro. I mean, you've seen some of the videos I've sent you. Like, sometimes I'll do a little conventional, sometimes I'll do a little sumo. I posted a video
Mhm.
months ago, and I was like how to deadlift correctly, and it's basically me doing conventional. Um,
Mhm.
I think there is, to some way, shape, or form, a little bit of gatekeeping within the community. But a good athlete should be able to either do both, in my opinion, right? They should be able to either do both, do one very well. I mean, we saw Ashton do it in one of his most recent meets, right? He failed in a sumo and
Yeah.
then switched to conventional at 800 some pounds and pulled it. Like, what? Huh? Like, not
Yeah.
saying that you should,
Yeah.
not saying you should do that, but like, the ability to be able to do something like that speaks about our athletic performance. And also, like, whether or not it matters is irrelevant, right? I think that video games taught me this. You know, if I don't know, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Call of Duty and all the
Oh,
talking
yeah.
that goes within. Yeah, like you hop on, especially in 2010, it was a different time back then. But if you hopped in, Modern Warfare 2 or any of these games, and you're going to be slaughtered with all these different ways of how kids talk. Then you meet them in real life, or you see a person in real life, and they're some of the nicest people you've ever met, or they're some of the most shyest people you ever met. And
Yeah.
like, what can you do, right? Like, we're all, I think, in some way, when somebody gatekeeps or gets emotional, we all kind of display something. But one thing I've learned is that at the end of the day, um, it's all about how we react, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, you see that in powerlifting too, to like kind of bring it back around to how people behave for powerlifting meets. Like there is such a spectrum of personalities. Like I've seen people, I'll just speak in my weight class, you know. There are people who listen to music and they'll literally be dancing, you know, and like lighthearted and like they're enjoying their time. Someone notorious for this is like LS McLean, and I love the guy. He's got the best energy. If you're not familiar with him, you've got to check him out. But
Okay.
then there's people like Mike Tushir, you know, Mike T of RTS, big role model of mine in powerlifting. He is 100% internal. So like in the back, you know, he's got everything within his ears, right? And he's not showing anything outward. And the most emotion you'll see from him is, you know, I think this year at Nationals he pulled for the silver medal. and he made it, and he gave it just a double fist bump, and that was it. And then you have me, who I pace and I talk to myself and I cry
Hell
and I
yeah.
like almost pass out because I'm like too worked up, and I have to be like, Tristan, calm yourself down. You can't pass out in the back. Like, this is just a
But
warm up. Uh,
I gotta say, I'm
so there's
sorry to
that range.
interrupt you. Like
Yeah.
I have to say though, the one meet that especially it's I think the video that you or the profile picture you have on your YouTube where you're like this, and then the video you're looking back to see if you got the white lights, bro.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you realize what that does, but I felt like I won something. Like I'm like, yo, this is so motivational. Like, so it's such a cool thing. I mean, obviously you have to be stoic in some way, but it's such a cool thing to see, like us powerlifters, but also someone like yourself get emotional and still remain humble. I mean, bro, like you can't ask for anything better. And that I'm sure, like you said, something about of like Mike T, like that had to be influenced a little bit about yourself, but also like that's, I mean, it's I think little kids, like younger people, I say little kids, but people in general can look up to that and be like, you know what, he worked hard for that. And you know,
Mhm.
if you're crying on stage, bro, like I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm the type to cry. I am very emotional at times, bro. Like I wasn't as a kid. I was like a little anger nugget. As an adult, I'm like, you know, I try not to get angry like that. You know, I'll cry sometimes before I get angry because, like, you know, I'm not a little kid, right? Like, it's good to feel those emotions. And more importantly, I've learned as I got older, I would rather someone be emotional and honest with me than hide their feelings from me and be angry and treat me in some type of
Mhm.
way. And just speaks maturity, you know. So I think the that's motivating for everyone in an emotional standpoint to look up to.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, first of all. And what I'm wanting for hopefully you to take away from this, and any viewers, kind of the point of that especially was, everyone has their own headspace that they have to be in to succeed. And you had mentioned the kids who were, talking to trash on Call of Duty. It's very similar. Like, some people love to talk trash. I was a big Halo guy back in the day. I was one of the guys, I would just sit silent, because I could never let the emotions get that high and perform. Now, of course, I'm the opposite, apparently. But taking it back to performance, in the back, you have to see all of those people and how they're handling it. Like, Mike T might prefer to be in his own headspace, but then he's got psychopath nasal rod pacing back and forth in front of him. And like, if you're that lifter who likes to be stoic, you can't let what someone else is doing bother you on the platform. Just like that Call of Duty player can't let the little kid who's talking trash mess up their game. You know what I mean? So when you're going into your first meet, I would guess everyone's going to be kind of nervous and like in their own energy. But just expect at some point you're going to see something that someone does, or something happens in the warm up room, and you're going to be like, what in the world is that? Okay. But remember to center yourself back to your job, and be like, hey, that's their process. Or if someone else misses a warm up, hey, that's their thing to do. Worry about me. Stay in my lane and don't get distracted, I guess.
Hey, thank you for that advice. I have been honestly, sounds a little wild to me, but I've been thinking about how I'm going to approach that aspect of the meet. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't want to, honestly, I'm not going to give it away. Like maybe not, at least not on the YouTube platform where things are live. But
Yeah.
I've been I've been channeling some of my ways I've dealt with things throughout the past few years, and I'll give that away, like meditation and positive
Hmm.
thinking, law of attraction, as we explained, which blew my mind that you said that. Like the other day where you were talking
Oh,
about
big
how law of
fan.
attraction, like that blew my mind because I'm not gonna lie, like some of the things I've manifested and written down as goals over the past few years that have come true is actually like
Hmm.
scary, bro. Like it's one of those things where I was like, how? Like, and it's just another example of how you said like how someone how someone may act or whatever. You can't let that influence you too much. And I still struggle with that. I'm not perfect, but one of the seven spiritual laws of success goes about and talks about allowing people to be who they are without judgment. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm still working on it, and it's something I'm not the best at, but it's something I'm actively practicing to this day. Is like just letting people be free, and it reduces the energy wasted and the want for me as a kid, who didn't have a lot of control, who now as an adult has some control, but still feels that there are things that you can't control, which is natural.
Hmm.
But one of the things I've had to understand is how to let go of wanting to control whatever variable X that there is, right? So I really appreciate that advice. I'm going to take it to heart and continue to meditate on what I can do to bring out that best version of me when the day comes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a good process to have be open. Like, if you watch my old videos, my first meets, I was no emotion, quiet. Like, you would think I was a robot, a weightlifting robot, just marching out, lifting the weights, going off. And in my head, I was ecstatic. Um, but I was finding that path of like where the energy level needed to be for me to be the most successful. And uh, my biggest kind of takeaway from that was early in my lifting career, maybe I couldn't be as outward as I am today, right? It's maybe a confidence and a practice thing where if I would have gone crazy and been emotional for my first couple of meets, you lose the details, because at your first couple meets, you're nervous, you're thinking, oh, I have to listen to commands, I have to pause the bench press, all of these things you have to pay attention to. Um, so I had to focus that energy instead of like uh, in here, it was like, do the commands, do the lift right. And I had no
Mm,
room for like getting excited at all. And then as it went on, I'm to the point, this happens almost without fail every year at nationals, this point, or a big meet. I'll have this panic moment, usually in the hotel room afterwards, where I'm like, did I do my squat setup? Or like, did I do my setup for deadlift? And I'll like go back on the screen because it's so ingrained in me that like while I'm out there, I'm completely off in my headspace to like have the emotions and that extra energy from the crowd. I just like I'm on autopilot as far as doing my setup. I don't even listen to the commands. It's just like my body knows to do it. You know what I mean? And you develop that over like at this point I think I've competed 30 plus times, and that frees you up to be more emotional. So I would just prepare I, I would convey this to you or any listeners who's getting ready for the first meet. The first one's going to be kind of weird because you're going to be thinking like, oh, when am I about to go up? What are the commands going to be? Oh, this platform's weird. Like, some people might not even know the platform's going to be carpet. A lot of people lift on rubber flooring and stuff like that. It can be weird to go out and be like, oh, this thing's carpet. um, and that comes back to like setting goals for your first couple meets. Say your goal's to squat, I don't know, I'm making up a number, 570, right? 560, or your PR is 550, right?
560, 562, I
On the
think,
on the
something like that.
Go ahead.
I think it's somewhere between 550, 560, something like that. I don't know. I
Yeah.
used to not
Yeah, I
do
think
models on Sumo.
562 maybe, if I remember right. Um, which you should obviously know better than me, but I'm just going off the top of my head. Somewhere in there. I'm making up numbers. You get the idea. But don't be disappointed. Okay, and this is kind of my advice to anyone doing their first meet. Don't be disappointed if you don't hit a PR, like an all-time best, or your numbers are a little down from your goal, to hit, because it's cliche, but every number you hit on the platform is a new competition PR. So you can feel great about it regardless. Like, as long as you're hitting numbers, then you're hitting PRs, and that's the number then for the next time that you can jump off of, right? So even
Right.
if you squat like 534, then the next time when you squat 562 on the platform, that's a new PR, and you're kind of like jumping off of that. Because of those outside stressors, it will take a toll. I want to make that clear, because you'll be stressed out about other things. Like, it's a weird environment. You're in a singlet, what is that, right? You've got all these strangers in front of you. You have judges, the whole 9 yards, and it's just going to be weird. So temper your goals a little bit, and I hate to say that. Just know that it's going to be hard, and that's what's fun about it.
That's wow. Dang, here soon. But I can
Oh,
only
all good.
imagine like when you add on like hundreds of pounds to any exercise that you're doing, and it's like nerve wracking in that way. Like it has to be even more so. Like you're shaking, like testing those limits. So it's it's definitely something that I'm interested in to see how it's going to be. But I don't know. I guess I won't know how I react to it until I'm there. So I definitely am going to lean on your guidance for that. And also, like one of the other things that is new to me is the weight or the weight aspect of it. Like um,
Hmm.
due to some health things, obviously I'm in and out of the doctors, and there's times where I'm losing weight, there's times where I'm gaining weight. So I'm definitely going to rely on the guidance of your advice and your expertise when it comes to um, like the way I'm eating, whether that's like the day of or whatever, like what's best. I
Hmm.
know Cody had previously mentioned like salt intake or something along those lines, which is new to me. So don't really know how
Yeah.
any of that's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say, as far as weight classes go, right? The number one thing I would suggest, and I think we've kind of talked about this, and I think we're on the same page here, but for anyone else who's signing up for me, please do not cut weight for your first competition. um, it is just one of those things, and I can at least say that I follow my own advice, like going up through, to where I didn't cut weight early for these same reasons. It's a 2 hour weigh in with these drug tested meats. So you step on the scale and you have 2 hours before you take your first squat on the platform. So that doesn't mean 2 hours before you start squatting. That's 2 hours before your opener. So really what it is you weigh in, and then you have about 1 hour before you have to start warming up. And as a like new competitor, if you try and cut weight when you cut water weight, the other half of the equation is getting that water weight back in. And with these drug tested meats, you only have an hour to get all of that water and the sodium, like Cody had mentioned, back in your system. And what a lot of people have end up happening is they're too stressed, right? Because they're not used to being in a meet and they don't want to eat. They're sick to their stomach because they're nervous, which is a normal response. So if you cut weight and then you're nervous and you can't get any of that back into your system, you're going to cramp and not perform as well. And then those people have bad days on the platform. Maybe they miss, over half of their lifts and they walk away and they're like, that was terrible. I'm never powerlifting again. So my
Right.
solution to that is take the weight out of the equation. We'll show up on the day of, step on the scale, whatever you weigh, that's the weight class you'll be in. Because once again, at a local meet, like no one, it doesn't matter what weight class you're competing in. Just lift what you do, and we'll see how the cards fall with the medals. But it's just not worth the potential risk of having a terrible day and ruining your whole powerlifting experience over being in a slightly less weight class. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And as someone that like depending on where I am and what I'm eating, I'm able to fluctuate anywhere between, especially right now, it's like 240 to 260. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I weighed myself the other day. I was like 247. Like I mentioned, I have some doctor's things, so I'm definitely going to be somewhere around that same weight. But my idea behind it is hopefully within the next few weeks, maybe I throw in a little pizza or something. I don't know, whatever it takes to gain a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
But the idea behind it is just to go in with the mindset of meeting people, but also not pushing my body to a point to where I can get injured or sick. Right? I think that one of the things you preached is if you want to do this for years to come, it's all about understanding your. If I please correct me if I'm wrong, but if I get what
Mm-hmm.
you were saying correct, it's all about understanding your own your own anatomy and your own like health. So it's definitely something that is on my mind. But at the end of it, I think that no matter what, I'm going to do my best. And um, in regards to the weight, like I don't know, man. There's like I think social media is a little bit to blame for everyone that has some form of body dysmorphia.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid that's always been, heavier weight. Um, I went through a period where I got down to 220 pounds, and I liked the way I looked, but as I started to gain weight, I was like, man, that's kind of nice. Your boy is like stronger, smarter, like
Yeah.
so it's a balance to figure it out. I mean, coming back to your meets too, like I was watching one of the videos, and this is also a topic that I think we discussed a lot in text, but something that I would love to ask you as well in here. And I noticed,
Yeah.
but in regards to your meets, first question would be, um, like when it came to your weight, like as a younger athlete, were you always in the 120 kg? Were you lower? And like how did that go for you?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny, uh, because I was in almost the exact same situation you're in, um, which, like, so my first meet, I told you I had that mindset, like I wasn't cutting, was just going in with what I was, and I weighed 237 pounds, which is 107 kilos. At the time, I was competing USAPL. The weight classes were 110, which is 242. And then the next one up was 275, 125 kilograms. And next one down was 100 kilos, 220. But so I did that first meet, was fine. I was 17 years old. My family always preached like, and they still have this rule today with my brothers who wrestle. Uh, they're not allowed to cut weight because as a teenager, if you are continuously cutting weight, and not only teenager but young young adult, uh, it can mess with your body's long-term growth, right? Like
Yeah.
it can kind of stunt your potential in a way. But of course, we're beyond that now. But I grew up with that mindset. So I was just like, I'm going to continue eating stuff and maybe I'll get stronger. So from my first meet to my second, I was 237 pounds. And then my second meet, I think I was right around 250 or something like
Okay.
that.
Nice.
And so I moved up a weight class, even though, like, I passed that 242, I went up into the 275. I was still well below 275. And then at that point, they split the weight class on me. They changed it. And the 275 class went to a 264 and a 231. So I was like 250 at the time, which kind of funny enough is right about where you're sitting decision wise. And I had a decision to make. I was like, well, I'm significantly under 264, but I'm still a decent way above 231. Do I cut down or do I just eat and fill out 264? And because of my background with my parents being kind of like anti cutting weight, um, right, whether that's right or wrong, that was
Yeah.
my mindset. Um, I was like, well, just fill out the weight class because I know I'm going to get stronger by gaining weight. And that year was the most game-changing year of progress for me. So, um, from that time, my first meet when I was 237, I totaled 1,322 pounds, 600 kilos on the dot. I think I squatted 451, I benched 369, and deadlifted 500 or 501, whatever the increment is. And then I ate for an entire like 15 months because that
Mm.
meet was in April. Raw Nationals, which was the next Raw meet that I did, it was my first Raw National Championships 2015, right? I weighed 258, so I gained 21 pounds in that, you know, 15-ish months. And my numbers went from a 451 squat to a 672 squat. And my bench went from 369 to 451, and my deadlift went from 500 to 650. And my total was like 1774 or whatever it is, 805 kilos. As a 19-year-old, I won teenage national championship and set some American records, but I owe it all to the fact that I was like, forget cutting weight. I'm just going to eat and get stronger. Like that was a
Mm.
turning point because had I decided to cut weight, there's no way I would have made those gains. And like getting stronger is such a fun process. It like almost got me addicted to the gains. And then that
Yeah.
propelled me into the future.
Man. And I obviously it wasn't at the level, but this past summer I went from 240-ish to 260, and I also saw an update or an increase in some of the like exercises. So it's definitely an interesting thing how it influences not only the weights but your mindset too, right? Like some people can eat in excess and not care. Some people like myself, like once I got closer to 270, for some reason I was like, man, I'm too heavy, right? But
Yeah.
when it comes to a sport like this, it seems like when you're in that weight class, it can be another strategic move that is beneficial to whatever the goal is. Cool. And that kind of, dives a little bit into, eating habits, which is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. Um, and then after that, I definitely have a question in regards to support, which that's another topic, but I'll try to breeze by some of the questions I have. So one of the ones being with the food, you know, I've gone through stages personally where I will I'll eat super clean, sometimes I'll
Hmm.
eat not as clean. Um, I used to track my micros and everything, but honestly, that is not for me. Like it's too much,
Yeah, too
Like
stringent. Yeah.
yeah, it's like as my computer's blue, but like it's almost I felt like like an avatar or a Smurf right there for a second. But but for me anyway, when it comes to like tracking, it did work, but I eat pretty routine, ground beef, chicken,
Hmm.
those type of staple foods. And when I'm stressed, I honestly don't eat enough, and I'm aware of that issue. Um,
Yeah.
but now, of course, I can get a nutritionist if I wanted to. I just wanted to see from your perspective, like how do you or how have you throughout the years balanced your diet? And would you call it a diet? Would you call it a lifestyle? Like how is it for you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I am kind of in the camp with diet as far as like it's a big math problem to me. If you're in a surplus, you gain weight. If you're in a deficit, you lose weight. There's no in between. If people say they're eating in a deficit calorically and they're not losing weight, either they're not counting their calories right or they're lying that they're in a deficit. But I'm kind of in the same camp as you. I don't count my calories or anything of the sort, but there's a give and take with that. Like if you want to be lazy and not count your calories, what you have to do is eat similar foods to where you know that those add up to your calories at the end of the day. Like for me, I eat 3 lunches while I'm at school. Basically, one second period around 10 o'clock, one during lunch, which is like 12, and then one when the students leave at 3. And I eat the same thing every single day. I eat a can of chicken with rice or crackers. I eat a can of tuna with rice or crackers, and I eat a can of chicken with rice or crackers um, every single day. And I have the same breakfast every day. I only have one meal out of my whole day that changes ever, and it's dinner because my girlfriend, God love her, right? She deals with me. Natalie, she draws the line at the same dinner every day. Because if it were up to me, I'd just eat the same dinner every single day of my life. But we switch up dinners for that reason. And, it's kind of nice. But by doing that, I like literally had to count my calories once, like go through those meals. And I'm like, okay, my maintenance is like uh, around 4,000 calories, a little bit under, if I want to maintain weight. So I just know all of those meals plus a dinner adds up to about 4,000 calories, and I'm going to maintain weight. If I'm cutting, I just pluck some crackers out of a couple meals, and I know I'm just putting myself in a slight deficit. And if I'm trying to gain some weight, I just do the opposite. And it's like playing with those variables, but I had to count first and then keep it simple, if that kind of makes sense. So
Exactly.
that's what I um, kind of support as far as like that would be my first suggestion if you're feeling like, hey, I can't count my calories every single day. Um, that's exactly how I am. Just know you're going to have to make up for it somewhere else, like in eating like this consistent thing to keep your calories stable.
Sure. And thank you for sharing. I've experimented throughout the years when I went super hard into the intermittent fasting and diet aspect of journey. And like I said before, I was able to get down to 220, but it wasn't sustainable for me to count calories
Hmm.
in that way every single day, especially as I got busier. So the thing that I've always preached since then for anyone that I know is like you got to learn how to intuitive eat, and it's awesome to
Hmm.
know that throughout your routine that you have learned that and practice that, because I thought I was an alien, bro. I was like, I'm eating the same thing. I've eaten ground beef, chicken, some kind like form of tuna, some form of like codfish and rice every day. And I mean, I'll sprinkle like, a cheat meal like McDonald's or something, or like
Yeah, of
a like,
course.
like a pizza or wings, stuff like that. I'll sprinkle that in there. Um, but at the end of the day, like to me, like I think once you, like you said, once you kind of establish that routine, it really boils down to just remembering how it goes. So I think that the viewer that watches this can kind of take that with a grain of salt and kind of dive into understanding their own way of eating without having to be too strict or not strict enough, right? I think that that's the
Yeah.
lesson to learn. Um,
And, well, not to cut you off there. Go ahead.
no, you're good, you're good. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna kind of like support your statement there in that um, I used to be someone who thought like calories at all costs, like McDonald's calories don't matter versus, chicken and rice calories. That I used to be even more on that side of like it did matter. And I did find that like I had a blood pressure issue back in 2020. It was right before the Arnold. I was having trouble with high blood pressure. I was getting optical migraines, which is basically like parts of your vision go blind for a period of time. And I had this night where I returned from the gym, and it was the weirdest thing ever to this day that's happened to me. I went dyslexic. So, like, I was looking at my phone, and all of the letters were jumbled and like the words on my phone screen. And I was kind of like panicked because I was like, what in the world's going on? And I tried to send a text out to like my mom to be like, hey, something's wrong. Like, help. Something's going on, basically. And it took me 45 minutes to try and formulate a text because I couldn't hit the right letters that I was trying to hit. And I ended up calling her. I was slurring my words. Like, it sounds like stroke symptoms type stuff. Um, the long short of it, like, I went and I got a MRI on my brain and all that stuff. They couldn't really tell me what happened other than like maybe it was a blood pressure spike from like being in the gym and my diet. And they put me on blood pressure medication, which I'm not someone who like if I can help it, I would rather do something naturally than just take a medication to kind of like put a band-aid on it. So I just like strapped up my diet after the Arnold, and it happened to land with COVID. I was eating the same meal six meals a day. It was turkey, spinach, rice. 6 meals a day, every day for it was like ended up being like 100 to 125 days just straight. Um,
Wow.
and it naturally brought um my blood pressure down, and I lost. No, it was probably about 20 pounds, and I was much healthier. And at that point, I allowed myself to start rotating in normal foods again, but I never fell back into the like McDonald's and junk calories because that scare kind of showed me, okay, some of these foods will ruin you. And I think sometimes powerlifters fall into that, the like calories at all costs. And what's it worth if you're dead, you know?
That's so true, man. That's so true. Like, and I mean, it's some of the health things that I'm facing now with random stomach pains. it's things that I'm trying to work through while maintaining school, work, gym, like powerlifting. Like, it's
Yeah.
the thing that you just said is so key. It's like if you can't take care of your long-term health, what does it all matter? If you end up if you're dead. So like in that way, shape, or form, I think that the lesson is, stop, like try to stay away from the McDonald's, right? But also
Mhm.
understand like there's health benefits to eating correct. And hopefully, as I continue to progress, I can not be a Smurf, but I can I can learn how to better supplement and aid my diet, which leads me to the question that I asked you the other day, something that is on my mind heavily. Um, and it has been on my mind throughout the past few years, but it's really been, I guess, thrusted upon not only myself, but my family in different aspects. So I also asked Ashton this, and I'd love to share his response after hearing your response as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But to kind of get into the question, it would be in powerlifting, and I think you might. Let me ask: did you get a scholarship or anything through your college? Like, were you paying for all of this your own?
Yeah. Yeah. So everything has been me as far as like travel expenses. I will say that shameless plug, SBD USA has been a sponsor of mine since 2017. So, they've stuck with me for a long time and they provide all of my equipment and support as far as like photography at meets. And I'll be honest, they're the best powerlifting company in the world. So I've been very fortunate to have them in my corner. But at the same time, I cover a lot of my own expenses too. So there's no kind of free rides, so to speak, with the powerlifting.
And that's something that I think can be relatable for anyone that watches this, including myself. And it's coming back to the question that I asked you the other day and I asked Ashton. When you don't have the support in this sport, what is the best route to take? And by support, what I mean is, you know, we're paying our own money. The money that we
Hmm.
work for, or whatever allocations we're putting towards this sport, we are doing it out of our own pockets. And not everyone's going to agree with that. I think that there's in life a lot of people are going to tell you what to do, tell you how to spend it, while their lives could also be a mess, right? So one of the things that I've continuously ran into as an older student and an adult, is finding the actual support that makes you feel comfortable in pursuing your dream. So that's the question I have is for you is just like the other day is, and just like I asked Ashton, what do you do when you don't have the support in this sport? What do you do?
Yeah. I'm a big proponent of like making your dreams happen. Like you just I don't know. A great example was going to Belarus for my first junior world championship. I was in the middle of college, um, you know, college classes, college expenses. I was waiting tables on the weekends to make ends meet as far as like college expenses go. And Belarus, I pay my way. It's not a cheap flight to Belarus by any stretch. And, getting hotel accommodations and flight and all of that as a college student. But I never gave it a second thought because I knew my purpose. Like,
Mm.
I was like, this is what I want to do, you know? And if you know this, right, where you want to go, the route to get there is any way possible. So,
Mm.
you pick up more shifts at the restaurant on the weekends. A lot of people might want to go out in college on a Friday night or a Saturday night. Well, I was like, forget that. I'll work another shift at the restaurant and save up more money for my trip. Now, that's kind of like a microcosm because I understand it's not as easy as like work another shift at the restaurant. It's
Sure.
also the like mental connection with what you want to do, and like your goal is something so much bigger, and you just have to understand that some people, and this is where like the personal support comes in, not just the financial. uh
Excuse me.
I had people in my life who didn't see the vision, you know um and I've been very fortunate. My parents have always been so supportive of me because they kind of saw what I really cared about. I was passionate about this thing, and they supported me as far as like, hey, you go do it. Um, but I've had relationships, whether it be friends or romantic relationships, where you know they basically just said, hey, you're going to have to make concessions and like prioritize differently, or I'm out. And I would say, or I'm out, I guess. Because I cared so much, right? Like I was like, this is my end goal, right? And anyone who wasn't with me was in the way of the goal.
Mm.
And it sounds kind of cutthroat, and I'll be honest, it's because it is. And back to the money, to me, of course, like I'm big. I have hobbies too. I love, actually, of all things, I love valuing businesses and like uh stock picking and weird stuff like that, and like
Yeah.
investments. So I have like this connection with money because I like that stuff. But to me, uh, and then saving for retirement's important for me, the future. But if I die with tons of money in the bank, like what's it all worth? I would rather spend some money to invest in my experiences. Like I probably paid, I don't know, Belarus was probably like a few grand, something like that to make that trip happen, you know. I would have paid, like looking back, that experience, if I paid $3,000, it's worth $30,000 to me. Like
Wow.
to remember that trip and the people I met and the experiences that happened from that trip. And like who gets to say I went and competed in Belarus, and everyone's like, "Where's Belarus?" And I'm like, "It's an old Soviet Union country. It's crazy, you know?" And all of that is worth 10 times the amount of money that I spent. But not knowing that, someone on the outside looking in would say, "Oh, $3,000 is a ton of money to spend." And I agree, it's a lot of money, but it was worth it to me. So bringing it back down to like dropping money on your first competition. Anyone who's brand new, you have to get a singlet, you have to get, membership fees, the meat fee, all of that. Think of it like you're investing this money in your future self, because you cannot, if your goal is to compete internationally, you can't get international without doing a local meet first. And then you can't compete internationally without doing a national meet first. So all of this money you're putting down up front is an investment to get to where your end goal is. And that'll pay off in the memories and the people that you meet. So that's where I
Wow.
sit, and I have no regrets whatsoever. Like I could have saved so much more money, sure, right? But everything that's in here from that money spent is worth way more to me.
Man, I have to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. And a question like that is difficult to answer. I've sacrificed plenty of things throughout this journey of mine, whether that's in powerlifting or school. I
Yeah.
personally, I didn't have, I'm paying for school out of my pocket. I didn't have the best of grades in high school. Um, my my original family, the ones that adopted me, and they never really went to college. But it's been, and I'm extremely grateful for the way they raised me. I'm extremely grateful for the family that I stay with now and the way that they've helped me. Um, they have supported in a way, and I think that my eternal gratefulness cannot be mistaken. I don't always show it, but from the bottom of my heart, I think that I mean it. And that's the same way when it comes to the coaching and your advice and you're sharing the story. Like, um, I can relate when it comes to relationships and things of that. It's not easy. Um, Not everyone's gonna understand, but
Yeah.
if there's anything that I can say to anyone that watches this, the sacrifices that you make are not in vain. And maybe I'm saying that to myself. Maybe I'm saying that to you. Maybe I'm saying that to my dog who's on the bed here. But like, um, at the end of the day, I feel like I know my purpose, the vision. And as Jaden Smith says, one of my favorite artists, he says that not everyone's going to understand the vision. And you said it too, and you hit that on the nail. It's like, if they don't understand it, and it is what it is. You can only come back
Yeah.
to, and this is a weightlifting lesson. Like, you can only come back to doing your best, hoping for the best, and in some way, shape, or form, I think it will lead to a better outcome. So if I could share what Ashton said in this, and it has me thinking, which is why I put that question out there for you. Um,
Yeah.
and like, this video platform, this is why I love doing anything recorded, because it gives a better and realistic approach to things that can't be replicated through text. But
Yeah.
I asked Ashton this, and I said, on the quest of attaining my Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering while working and powerlifting, I don't feel like my some of my family or whoever supports my athletic goals, but I foresee myself making waves in this sport. Do you have any advice for those of us that don't have the best support? Same thing and this is literally almost word for word, kind of what you said, bro. He said that it took him winning a world championship and being offered a full ride scholarship for his mom to even care. Um, and then he turned down the scholarship to go to college with his best friend or something like that. And then he also asked me this question, which I think is great for the viewer, is, are you doing this for you first and foremost? It can be rough not having the support, but if you love the sport and believe in your ability to be exceptional, then you should ultimately go for it regardless. There's a good chance they'll get on board later. And he can't blame people for not always supporting because it's uncharted territory. So, um, as someone that I'm talking to that has been to Belarus, that has thrown down the money on that has won national champions and championships and done, you know, whether or not you believe it, whether or not you notice it, I'm not over here just, sucking up to you. At some point, I think it's really, you're gonna see it, especially within the next few years, next few months, if you haven't seen it through your reach through social media. Um, I really believe that, 10, 15 years, we'll be saying, oh yeah, Tristan Nazarod run like 50,000 like type of stuff, right? Like, he's done all these great things for
I
the sport.
appreciate that.
Yeah. And I think that our generation is going to make history in that way. So that's why, if anyone can take something from that question for me, is to follow your goal, follow your dream, and most importantly, trust in it. Because if you have that vision, it's there for a reason. You don't just you can't ignore it. It's gonna bug you until you go after it. So for me, as someone that's chasing dreams and on my own version of pursuit of happiness, I'm gonna keep striving forward and hopefully get all the support and return that support for the people that supported me. And that's what I told Ashton. It's not just about me, right? Like, obviously,
Yeah.
I literally I wrote this as like, there's no I in team, but there is a me in team. Even if it's backwards, there's a me. So in some way, shape, or form, the idea behind it is to not only do this for myself, but give back to those that need it, and especially the kids that need that motivation in some way or shape or form.
Yeah. Yeah. And well said. That's awesome that Ashton took the time to answer that. He's got a way bigger platform than myself. And I will say, I haven't gotten to hang out with Ashton, and I would call him a friend. You know, he's one of the good ones for the sport. So it is cool to see that he kind of has similar advice or motivations to what I would think. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. So I'm excited to see where you go. You've got so much ahead of you, and obviously your head's in the right spot as far as, doing this first meet, but you have ambitions well beyond this and meeting people and enjoying the journey. So, you know, can't ask for much more. Um, with that said, I think we've been on here for probably an hour and a half at this point. So
Yeah,
probably wrap it up. Is there any last things you want to mention? Maybe plug your social media one more time before we hop off of here too.
for sure. First and foremost, I feel like I could stay on here all day, so I'm glad that you're ending it now. Thank you for bringing me on to or giving me the opportunity to even have some type of voice and interviewing me in this way. I really look forward to how the meet's going to go, how you're going to coach me in that way, and I'm honestly, I'm done with the 2x12s, bro. So I'm so happy that we're over that aspect. But I did enjoy it, going there and lifting 300 plus pounds for 12. People were like, "That's impressive." So it's cool. My own personal social medias, you can reach me at Instagram or TikTok at I'm Stanley Brown, pretty much exactly how you would do LEY. But at the end of the day, I look forward to growing not only by myself, but also with you and other people who are part of this community. I look forward to learning different things and trying to follow my creative passion. And I can only thankful. So I don't know if my headphones just died, but cool.
I
They're
can
still
still
working.
hear
But
you.
cool,
Okay.
cool. But yeah, other than that, yeah, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. And my last question would be for you is, if you could say, I always like to leave on a positive note. So, in the next five
Yeah.
years, where do you see yourself within this sport?
Next 5 years, I want to be still doing the sport, right? So still enjoying it, right? The moment I stop enjoying it, that's when I'm going to stop. But I can't foresee that in the future. I hope to have, been successful. But the newest thing in my journey is I hope that I have influenced a lot of people in a positive way, and help them kind of in their journey for powerlifting. That's the biggest thing. I want to see myself uh, being able to give back a little bit while still competing at a high level.
That's awesome, man. I think we both will be able to do something along those lines, and I look forward to growing with you. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I agree. It is. I look forward to it. And yeah, thanks for coming on, man. I'm sure we'll have you back sometime, maybe to recap your meet after it's all said and done. But yeah, if you all enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Give Stan a follow on social media. And until next time, happy lifting, everyone. Good night.